Good for you.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation Regular Board of Directors meeting. Today is February 12th, 2026. It is 9 a.m. I would like to ask Essa if you would go ahead and take a roll call.
Today in attendance, we have Chair Gary Mackler, Vice Chair Carol Ryman, and Directors Grant Chun, Seth Colby, and Designee Mary Alice Evans.
We have 5 directors attending. We have a quorum. Before we go on, to let the public know, we will take testimony on each of our agenda items today. I would like to ask Gordon to come up and provide us with the rules for giving testimony.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. Hello to you all. I'm Gordon Payne, Housing Information Officer for the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation. To the members of the public participating either in person or remotely, these are the instructions if you would like to provide testimony at board meetings on board agenda items. All remote attendees will need permission to speak or share screen by clicking on the raise hand icon. Again, if testifying remotely via Zoom, when the chair asks for those providing testimony, please click on the raise hand icon of your screen. If testifying in person, when the chair asks for those providing testimony, please just raise your hand. Either way, the chair will call upon each raised hand accordingly. Excuse me, during the respective agenda item. Whether you are testifying in person or remotely, when called upon to testify, please state your first and last name and provide the name of any organization you present. At the discretion of the chair, each testifier will have 3 minutes to speak per agenda item. At the 3-minute mark, I will yell time. We ask that you take no more than 15 seconds to conclude your testimony at that point. Please keep in mind that this is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts with the board only. Neither the board nor staff are required to answer any questions you may ask during your testimony. Finally, if you are wishing to submit written testimony, instructions for doing so are located on the first page of the agenda under the section titled Providing/Submitting Testimony. Thank you.
I'd like to go to the approval of minutes under section 2, the regular board meeting minutes of January 8th, 2026. Is there a motion to approve? Second. You have a second. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Directors? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is section 3, our discussion and or decision making. Item A, which is to approve 1, resolution number 223, which provides for official intent with respect to the issuance of Hula May multifamily tax exempt revenue bonds, and 2, reservation of low-income housing tax credits for the 1142 Hinau project located in Honolulu, Oahu, TMK number 1-4-4-012029. Is there a motion? Thank you. We have a second. Before you present, I do want to ask if there's anyone in the public wishing to give testimony on this agenda item. If not, staff.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. My name is Jessica Patterson, Housing Finance Specialist with the Finance Branch. Here to present a request to approve number 1, resolution number 223, which provides for official intent with respect to the issuance of Hula May multifamily tax exempt revenue bonds. And number 2, reservation of low-income housing tax credits for the 1142 Hinau project located in Honolulu, Oahu, TMK number 1-2-4-012, parcel 29. I'd like to note that this is the final project being awarded with the 2025 funding round. Facts about the project. The applicant is Keenan Partners LP and the developer is Ahe Group. The project consists of a newly constructed single 20-story residential tower with 204 LIHTC units and 2 manager units. Residences will feature both 1 and 2 bedroom configurations and target individuals and families earning 30%, 60%, and 80% and below of the area median income. Additionally, the project has set aside 2 units for homeless families and families at risk of homelessness. Project has committed to an affordable period of 66 years. Total development costs for the project are estimated at $128.3 million. Background on the project. The project applied with the 2025 funding round, where it requested $5.9 million in annual federal and state LIHTC from the non-volume pool, $64 million in tax-exempt bonds from the Hula May multifamily program, and a $43.5 million loan from the rental housing revolving funds. Staff reviewed the project's application for completeness, minimum threshold, and competitively scored the project alongside other 2025 applicants, after which it was deemed meritorious for an award. Staff further evaluated the request and worked with the applicant on identifying potential areas of savings and efficiencies. This effort resulted in a reduction of the requested LIHTC and RHRF resources. Total development costs were also revisited and reduced for greater efficiency. Regarding readiness, the project has 201H approval from the City and County of Honolulu, and construction plans are currently under review with the municipality. And approvals are expected in Q3 of this year, with financial closing and commencement of the construction projected by end of 2026. With this, staff recommends that the board approve the following. Number 1, resolution number 223, which provides for official intent with respect to the issuance of revenue bonds up to $64 million for the 1142 Keenan project. Number 2, reservation of up to $5,777,121 in annual federal LIHTC over 10 years, and the same amount in state LIHTC over 5 years from the non-volume pool, subject to the provisions and conditions recommended in Exhibit E and Exhibit F. Number 3, authorize the executive director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this for action. At this time, representatives from the Ahe Group would like to provide the board with a presentation on the project.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is Makani Maeva. I'm the president of the Ahe Group and here today to talk about 1142 Keenan Street. This is just a quick update of who Ahe Group is. I've been involved in affordable housing since 1995, but started Ahe Group, which is owned by me and 2 key employees. We thus far have 24 properties, 1,839 units, and we affect about 4,500 people and provide housing each day. The location of this property is not really identified very well in this map, but it is on Keenan Street, which is a one-way street that runs sort of parallel to the H1. Oh, here, better picture where the star is. It's across the street from Queen Ka'ahumanu Elementary School. On either side, it's flanked by market rate for sale condos, and on the opposite side, actually a senior LIHTC transaction that was constructed, I think, close to the year 2000. So the main cross streets are Pi'ikoi, which is one way going up to the H1 intersection, and behind is I don't know, probably Ward is the closest. So it's one way Keenan Street, and the opposite direction, of course, Fairfax Street. The land is currently vacant. It has some small walls remaining on it. But we purchased the land in December of 2023, recognizing the HHFDC staff and board's intent to award projects that satisfy readiness. We acquired the land and began to build and design this project in 2024 after we acquired the parcel. So as Jessica said, we have a 201H approval. This will be a new construction project, family, 66 years. It is an 18,750 square foot lot. And it will be 206 units in 95 ones, 109 twos, and the income skews are 30%, 11 units, 60% at 189 units, and 4 units at the 80% AMI. You might ask why we have 4 units at 80% AMI, and the answer is strictly the scoring when we applied rewarded projects that were certain numbers just mathematically. So we have some that are actually going to be able to serve the market. These are the rental rates for the ones in 2 bedrooms. We have been in for a permit and been through, I think, 4 rounds of review already. So we anticipate the permits very, very soon. We hope to begin the construction in the 4th quarter of 2026. And I did see Gary Mackler, our chair, roll his eyes, I think, when we said that. But I think we can make it if we have bond counsel. I think if we have bond counsel and RHRF documents are turned back to us, we can start construction. Really, we can. We are ready to go. I have, as proof of this, my contractor, Jason Thon with Unlimited behind me. Yeah, proof. Right. 2 units are reserved for families experiencing homelessness or risk of homelessness. And it's, as I said, the surrounding uses are commercial. And, you're sort of right at the intersection. There's housing across the street, and then across P.E. Coy, there's the big Safeway shopping center and medical and office buildings all surrounding the area. So it's a really urban infill space. And of course, lots of bus and rapid transit. A beautiful picture of the layout. This is the actual parking. There are 25 parking stalls, 126 bicycles, and as I said, there are multiple bus stops, Hiki stations within a half-a-mile radius. And there's a half-a-mile walk to the nearest public parking garage. And we are going to, I think the questions are going to be around this, so I'll skip to the next, section. We are building 25 parking stalls for 206 units. And the reason is because we don't have a parking stall need. We have a housing need. We are building according to what's required in the LUO. And in this area, there's no parking that's required. So we're going to build some parking stalls for seniors, disabled, and for those who would, who absolutely need close proximity. But what we're trying to really focus on is building the housing. And really, you'll see the reduced project cost as a result of that. I also want to point out that parking stalls cost between $35,000 and $50,000 a unit to construct. So we are avoiding those costs. We also have worked hard to understand the costs of owning a car and the burden upon our tenants. So that's about $1,400 a month, according to a recent study that came out. I should know the name of, but I can't remember at this very moment. What we are doing is we're trying to underwrite this project and keep the rents at today's rates. We're not going to escalate the rents. And in doing that, we believe we're going to have a market advantage for our rents. And we also are going to provide a subsidy to the residents for the Hui car share. So our idea is really centered around shared parking, use of rapid transit, capitalizing on the location in the middle of town, and reducing the construction costs by eliminating the parking, which is not required. I've had a lot of conversation. We've had a lot of exciting conversation about this. And I said, well, what if I decided for kicks that I was going to build 50 pickleball courts? Pickleball is really popular, right? And you guys would probably say, hey, McConey, pickleball is not necessary there. And I would say, oh, but I want to build pickleball. Why won't you finance that? It's the same if I were building parking in an area where parking's not required. And parking, actually, if we're never going to we're never going to move the needle. If we could keep building parking, we're never going to move the needle to getting people to go to, you know, semi-autonomous cars, hui car share, public transportation, rapid transit. So I don't, and this is probably some reason why I'm late to the party here in terms of getting an award, but I don't think it will be easy. We have an extended lease up period. We are anticipating keeping our rents frozen at these levels. We are going to have a heavy marketing push towards people who are, you know, lead a carless life and are interested in this type of housing, but I'm quite sure we can do it, given the demand that we've seen in some of the other projects we've recently completed. Let's see, pictures of our building. It's a modern, simple entry. You can see it's a typical floor line, but the area that you see with the storefront on the very front is the community space, which sort of juts out of the building and gives you a sight line over Canal Street. And any questions, I'm open to those.
The presentation,
Yeah.
directors, questions for McConey? Director Evans?
I'm aware that, you know, there are no minimum parking requirements, but I'm also aware that some low income rentals have had difficulty leasing up because of no or limited parking. And you say you have an extended lease up period budgeted into your timeline?
Right.
Sorry.
I can hear you, but I think it's for the record.
I have a concern
Mhm.
for family. I know seniors also have a concern about not having parking, but for families, that area, when it's, you know, time for work to be over, it's circling the blocks for extended periods of time, looking for on-street parking. And that can be a strain on it. So I am concerned that 25 parking stalls for 189 units is going to be challenging for families and that income.
Yeah. I definitely am sensitive to challenges of families in that income level. We have, you know, we have 1 and 2 bedroom units, so we're not looking at large families. We are, of course, just across the street from the elementary school as well. But we have experience in this area. We have the Queen Emma project, which is 71 units, and it's right downtown Honolulu. You probably don't recall, but we have only 11 parking stalls there. And we have no problem keeping that property 100% leased. We have studios 1s and 2s, so similar size of apartments. Those units and some of the reasons, and because people have come to me about other projects which haven't leased up. I'll tell you, the reason those, I would propose that the reason those don't lease up is not related to the parking, but more related to the architecture, the design, the common area considerations. So this property will have air conditioners, will have washers and dryers. It will have other amenities that people also value. And so, you know, and we're also building in downtown Kailua, a 40-unit project with no parking. And so we're looking for people who lead a carless life or otherwise use public transportation. I definitely think that if you are a family and you can afford a car, then you would choose another place to rent that comes with parking. That is just not an amenity that we think we have to offer in order to have a stable project. We've had no problems. I'm sure we'll have overwhelming demand. We haven't, our project in Kailua is done in June, and we probably have 200 people on the wait list already. We don't have a wait list. We don't have a formal process, but the number of people who've come out and they know there's no parking, and that's not a problem for them. So I definitely think there's a shift in, the younger demographic that's looking for, their primary concern is a nice place to live, housing, a safe, secure, decent place to live, and it is not around the parking. Just anecdotally, my kids are now just about 20, but they were not rushing to get a car, right? They're happy to use an Uber. They're happy to use a car share. They are, sharing rides and it's just not, it's kind of not the same thing. They aren't rushing down when they were 16 years old. So I do think that as we move towards the needs of this demographic, really the community spaces we were talking about yesterday, they're going to be shifted towards private office spaces that they can do if they're working from home, and different needs. We used to build community spaces that were for the baby luau parties. That's not what this is going to be. That community space is actually going to be used for small private offices, workspaces, quiet areas that you could do work from home. And so I think it's a different demographic. I do not underestimate that I am on the cutting edge of this, but I acknowledge the risk. That's why I've taken a look at lease up times, rent amounts, etc. So, but if not now, when, right? We changed the LUO some time ago, and we do not need parking in the central business district. So we should stop building it, and then people will start using public transportation. It is very hard to do a project and say, oh, by the way, ride the bus. But if you don't want to ride the bus, we've given you 2 parking stalls, and think that somebody is going to use it. There's no test case for it, right? So I worry as much as you do, maybe more, because I'm going to sign on the construction loan, right? But that being said, we really are trying to consider, how do we market this? How do we increase the amenities that people of this demographic want? And how do we focus our really finite amount of resources here at the state towards building housing rather than housing for cars? So it's edgy. I don't disagree, but I think we can do it.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Any other questions, directors?
Yeah, and I apologize ahead of time. I just started on this board, so I'm gonna have lots of elementary questions.
Don't worry. I actually Googled you when I was
Okay.
sitting there because I
Okay.
didn't realize you'd started on the board. So don't
Yeah,
worry.
so and this can go to HHFDC or whoever is the right person. So first of all, am I understanding correctly that the 4 2-bedroom apartments that you have at 80% AMI, that's basically market rent?
Actually, it's still below market rent for that area. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to come to terms with like how much we're like housing and how much of the state resources we're putting into these projects.
Yeah.
So what would like market rate be for like a 2-bedroom apartment in your place?
In my place?
Yeah,
or
yeah,
in the
in a
market
compar-
area?
yeah, in a comparable.
In the market area. You know what? We have a market study. Just for the record, even though we say their income level is up to 80% of the AMI, we usually underwrite at the same rent levels. So this allows us a little bit more latitude, so that notwithstanding that you make 80% of the AMI, your rent is still held at the 60% level, just to make that distinction. But we are about $400 below market rents for that area.
Okay, so the 4
It's like,
2-bedroom units would go for $2,700 if you're saying the rents are 20.
that's correct, yeah.
And then how does this risk work here? So let's say you build that, the apartment complex,
Yes.
right? And we don't rent it out. It can't,
I don't rent it. We don't rent it.
you don't rent it
Yeah.
out, so you're not bearing the risk for if it's 70% occupancy rate. Who
Oh.
bears a risk?
I do.
You do,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, I'm signing personally on the construction loan, which can't be paid down to the permanent amount if we can't rent it up, right? So I have to meet in certain income tests and occupancy tests. So I have to have 90% occupancy for 90 days. And then we have to meet all of our debt coverage covenants in order to convert from the permanent financing and down, or excuse me, from the construction financing and pay down to the permanent financing. So I sign personally. Also, the tax credit equity that comes in, I sign a personal guarantee to the tax credit investor. The risk that HHFDC would bear, which is I think your question, is that the rental housing revolving fund loan that you're giving won't be repaid from the cash flow. So there won't be any cash flow to repay HHFDC their rental housing revolving fund loan. Yeah, that is your risk. Once you give me an approval, all the balance of the risk shifts to me.
Okay, got it.
And actually, it's straight up me. It's not a royal we or anything. It's actually me personally.
And the tax exempt bonds for HHFDC was 64 million.
Yeah.
How much would that cost in the like open market? So I'm just trying to understand, like the state is providing, there's multiple ways that the state is supporting these projects, right? So there's the rental housing revolving fund,
Yeah.
LIHTC, tax exempt bonds,
Right.
right? So $64 million.
Yeah.
Like, do we have, and this can go to HHFDC as well, like, do we have any information about like how much that costs the state versus?
You're a conduit issuer.
Doesn't really.
It doesn't cost you anything. You're just an
Because it's-
approving agency.
Yeah,
Well,
it ends up being part of the bank loan.
how does that work? Because I'm an economist, so I don't believe in free money,
No, there's no,
Right.
I agree.
right? So like, somebody is offering a guarantee.
No.
Well, like the HHFDC, reason ENF's on the board is because the bond liability and financing. And the risk is correlated with our the amount of debt that we issue as a state, right? So I'm just trying to understand, like,
I don't think your debt risk is correlated to it's correlated to the amount you personally issue. Your debt risk this is not the full faith and credit of the state of Hawaii. This is a conduit bond issuance. And so it falls under a different category. So the federal government allocates an amount of bonds to the state of Hawaii, and you just are a conduit issuer. So your responsibility is confirming that the use is appropriate, but the full faith and credit of the state of Hawaii is not behind these bonds. These are a tax exempt rate, and we will go out and have a private bond purchase. Actually, this is a private placement. So I think it's a local bank that will buy these bonds, and they will cash collateralize the construction loan.
got it. So these are federal loan, like conduit of what?
It's these private activity bonds.
Yes,
Private
Yeah.
activity bonds
yes.
from, okay,
That were authorized to issue.
by who?
By the treasury,
By the IRS.
by the treasury.
Okay. Elementary school teacher.
No, no, no,
Elementary school, so I'm just
No,
trying to
I'm glad you're
understand.
asking. I'm like, let me remember.
Right, yeah, and so
So you're providing us access to below market
Right.
financing, tax exempt below market financing. It doesn't come at any cost to the state. Per se, it is, you're just allocating access.
in the below market, how much would market be?
What is the market rate interest?
Yeah,
What's the
like,
market interest rate on the bonds?
It's about 80, usually they do about 80%. So it's the tax difference based on the interest that the bank would be paying on that extra income. So
okay, so
it's about
this is like a
80%.
tax plan.
Yeah, it's the adjusted this is the adjusted tax exempt rate. So we're doing a taxable tail on something right now, and I think we're at 747. We're either at between 710 and 740 on the interest rate, and we're gonna have a tax exempt rate that is about, tax adjusted. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, just to let you know, because of the nature of these 4% tax credits, they're actually required to use the the tax exempt bonds for a portion of the, so they can't just go out and get a bank loan instead of using these bonds. It's actually required by the IRS that you go and issue these bonds through the state, and then usually they get placed with the bank. So the bank bears the risk, and then ultimately McConaughey bears the risk in the meantime.
Okay,
So, yeah.
got it.
And so, but by access to the tax exempt bonds, as Mike was saying, triggers our the availability of the 4% low income housing tax credits, which allows us to raise equity to support the construction cost of the whole property, recognizing that the income that we're generating from the rents can only support a certain amount of the construction costs, right? So that's what we're trying to do, is come up with a capital stack, which is the tax exempt rate in addition to this tax credit equity, which comes in, and then the rental revenue can only support a certain amount of actual debt. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the rental housing revolving fund
Yes,
is like the subordinated.
that's correct. It's paid through cash flow. It's repaid through cash flow. It's supposed to be a revolving fund loan.
Okay. And the equity base is basically the LIHTC credits.
It is. It's the low income housing tax credit equity that's raised through the syndication of those tax credits.
And do you put it up equity as well, or how does that work?
No, in general, we pay for the pre-development expenses, all of the finance. So at this point in time, I'm well into acquiring the land, designing it, third-party reports, et cetera, and carrying it for a certain period of time. And then I will sign for all of the construction cost overruns first. And then I will sign for operating deficit guarantees on the long term. So after I convert from construction financing to permanent financing, the operations of the asset, I'm also on the hook for the next 15 years, right? And then the third guarantee, really, the third component of that is that all of the tenants who live there are income qualified and they're real qualified residents. And so so the actual amount of the tax credit equity that comes in, I have a personal guarantee against that says the people who we rent to are really indeed qualified, and we are in compliance on a long-term basis. So those are the three long-term, and then of course, so anyway, those are my risks and my exposures.
And then you also get exempted for the GET.
Yes, that's correct. The general excise tax is exempt, or the construction costs are exempt, as are the income from the rental of the affordable units.
So let's say you're 100% affordability. I could multiply all these up.
Yes,
And all that is exempt from GET.
that's correct. Yes. We also, although this isn't your pile of money, but we're also exempt from real property tax.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's critical and important.
Mhm.
Yeah. That comes from the city.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But you can call and ask me any questions.
No, I'm just trying to understand all the ins and outs. It's complicated. Financing schemes, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
My question is, reach stabilized occupancy at 90%. What is your time projection for achieving that?
I think we have it at about 20 months. Yeah.
And my other question is actually for your contractor. This is a really tight construction site. How are you planning to stage for this?
So we've already actually been in contact with DOT, and we found a parcel that's kind of we found a parcel that's near the post office that we planned on renting from them. And so there's that space that the office staff will work out of, as well as vans that'll shuttle guys back and forth. Closing canal to set up the crane will be a delicate balance that we would like to get started on sooner or later, because that process is going to take a while. But we recently finished a Holly Violu project on the corner of River Street and Vineyard that also didn't have any staging area. So really the goal, kind of the means and methods, is to get the the parking area done so you have enough space to bring materials in on an as needed basis. Cause you're not gonna have a spot, like you said, to lay stuff down on that site.
Thank you.
I have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Do we request demographic information on your tenants, like for HHFDC loans? So are like, I'd be interested to know, are like, is this a project for like primarily 20 to 30-year-olds or like families? And do we track that over time?
We do a market study as we're prepping this. On an ongoing basis, the demographics of the tenants who occupy. I don't know whether we turn that, whether we track that for HHFDC. On some federal programs, you are asked to, and then we gather data when we're looking at who are the employers and where do those residents live, and just for our purposes, we are tracking. You know, there are some projects too, like somebody will say, oh, seems like a lot of these people are from off island, you know, if I'm building on Kauai. And so we'll go do a deep dive and say, are there any residents here that did not come from Kauai? Are we serving the residents we thought we were? You know, and we're trying to track that. Really, we find that the people who are working in any particular project are really localized, like and building on the Big Island. And we have a lot of tenants who are in the rental car industry, who work at the airport, who are working at the surrounding stores and services to that Big Island project. So after the fact, we can look back and see, and we really do see that we are serving a local community right there with very focused within a very focused geographical area. We do it mostly because we want to know.
Yeah.
You know, we just want to track who are we serving, and are we really serving them well? And if we're having, you know, if we're slow to rent in some particular area, a unit type, what could we do to change that slightly? Yeah.
And does HHFDC track that information at all?
So I know there's compliance monitoring that's ongoing, that there's data tracked, and I'm not sure to the degree which the, you know, demographics and everything is collected, but they're tracking for compliance to make sure that the incomes are within the range and everything. So
I just think that's a really interesting idea, right? Because as we're trying to create a housing ladder, right, like we want to make sure we're hitting all aspects of the market. So what happens, and I'm not as familiar with the specific housing needs in Honolulu, but like cities build up 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and then they're like great for young single people, and then there's like not a lot of places for families to like migrate up. And so, you know, just as we're thinking about, you know, the overall strategy, this is not a particular project thing, but like as we're thinking about the overall strategy, we want to have a housing market that provides for different segments of different people's lives. And so having that information so we can target that.
Well, the best way to manage that really is in the allocation plan, like to give more emphasis on larger size units if that's what your focus is, right? So I think that is not exactly what your allocation plan says. So we've said for a long time, identify your goals and make your allocation plan serve those goals and be very clear about them. And you can't have 1,000, just have a few. And so if your goal is like, okay, we feel like we're chock full of senior units, then don't emphasize that. Move on to larger family sizes. Now we are also building in Kapolei, and we'll be, you know, hopefully before you soon. We've just finished 406 units in Kapolei. We're moving on to another 150 units, and we are in that area emphasizing 3 and 4 bedroom units. We're eliminating studio units, to your point, which is, hey, out in Kapolei, the real focus is larger size of units. They have larger families. So as we're designing some of these projects, we really are looking at, we need them to be successful, right? And because we're signing personally, but so we are really looking at what demographic are we and can we serve, and in order to make sure that arriving at the right need.
Okay, any other questions, directors? Great discussion. Thank you for everyone for that. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, hearing none, motion carries. I do see we have, Director Glenn in attendance. I should ask you, at this time, if anyone else is with you, remotely.
Aloha, Chair. Thank you. No one is with me at this time.
Thank you, and thanks for being available for today's meeting. Okay, moving on, we're gonna go to item 3B, which is to approve a rental housing revolving fund project award for the 1142 Keynote project located in Honolulu, Oahu, PMP number 12-4-012029. Can I have a motion? This item?
Second.
You have a second? Is there anyone in the public wishing to give testimony for this item? Hearing no requests, we'll turn it back to staff to present.
Aloha again, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. This is the corresponding RHRF award for the same project in the previous for action. As mentioned, the project was part of the 2025 funding rounds, where it requested various resources, including $43.5 million loan of the rental housing revolving fund. Through discussions and collaboration with the applicant, this amount was reduced to $40 million. Loan terms were also modified to promote repayment of RHRF on a timely basis. With this, staff recommends that the board approve the following. An RHRF project loan award loan of $40 million to Kinau Partners LP for the 1142 Kinau project with the terms and conditions prescribed in the for action. And furthermore, subject to the following: number one, authorization and approval by the governor for the proposed project and the release of RHRF program funds as mandated under chapter 15-311 Hawaii Administrative Rules. Number two, execution of documentation satisfactory to the HHFDC outlining the terms and conditions of the project award. The documents shall specify the standard and specific terms and conditions as required to meet all statutory requirements of the RHRF program. Number three, completion of all documentation necessary and required to secure the release of RHRF funds. Number four, certification of the applicant to comply with all applicable statutory and program requirements as they may relate to the use of state funds. Number five, total fees paid to the developer for the project, including but not limited to developer overhead, developer fees, consultant fees, and project management fees shall not exceed the amounts indicated in the applicant's consolidated application and in the for action. Number six, availability of the RHRF program fund. And finally, to authorize the executive director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this for action. Mahalo for your consideration on this one.
Thank you. I'll open it up for questions, directors. I have a question. Looking at the amount of the loan amount for the revolving fund, it's about 194,000 per unit on my math. So what are you seeing as the range of per unit amounts to utilize this gap financing? Does it fall within the range?
Yeah, it's actually below, so, I wanna say, I was looking at the number recently. For new construction projects in 2025, the average. New construction projects, 2025, the average applicant was over, I wanna say it was about $250,000 per unit for RHRF. And then the average awarded amount was somewhere around 200,000, maybe slightly above 200,000. So this is below the RHRF per unit of the average for this project in particular.
Okay, thank you.
And for the total amount of funds that we have available at the state is $139 million. Is that correct?
That is the available cash balance. Available cash balance. When you take into account the projected infusions. The cash balance right now is negative $97 million. But the infusions of $180 million and $56 million are forthcoming. So we take that into account, the funds available for $139 million.
So when are we going to, let's say we pass everything and we disperse $40 million. When are we going to, would that happen? And like,
When the project closes,
When the
so
project
they have to
closes.
get their building permits, their other financing in line. So that'll be, say, when McConaughey said in fourth quarter of this year. So that's when the funds actually are dispersed to the project.
okay, and then you have, when are you expecting to have the total balance of 139?
BNF when they
Yeah.
use the fund.
Okay, and then, and so basically with this project, about 22% of our overall of the rental revolving housing
Of
fund.
the balance right now. So we awarded over $300 million in RHRF. Previously in 2025, we had a large balance.
Mhm.
So this is the remaining balance now.
Right, right, so this is a bit, but this is like our gunpowder,
Yes.
right? Like this is a lot of the money that we have to deploy. And even though we get repaid on these loans, they're like long-term loans, so they're basically kind of disappear for 20, 15, 20 years.
So and revolving period.
And so what's the plan for HHFDC once we get through this $40 million?
We rely, well, there's conveyance tax fusion, so
Yeah.
about $38 million or so from the conveyance tax
Per year.
and also legislative infusions.
What happens to the HHFDC if you don't get more? What is that?
Then we just rely on the conveyance tax infusions and the payments, which are less or almost throughout annually, but $2 million each year, 10 million or so each year.
Yeah,
Okay, so
there's a thought that we could move forward in 2026 awarding without the RHRF because again, the timing. So that, potentially, because these projects don't need the RHRF because the projects don't need RHRF immediately, right? There's time to get them their RHRF awarded prior to closing. So, in order to keep projects moving forward, as opposed to just saying, okay, we only have 100 million or so to award in 2026, because that may be, 3-4 projects at most.
Yeah.
So we're working on a plan to continue, because we could still potentially award the HMF bonds that allow the project to continue moving forward and then come back when they're closer to closing and say, hey, we're ready for our HRF. This is the exact amount we need. In the meantime, work with the ledge and others to get the money put in for our HRF. So we were trying to come up with some way to keep the process moving forward without having it come to a complete halt, because the RHRF is not available, 1 to 2 years out.
right, because so right now we have, it's $40 million in average project size.
For the 4%, that's probably around the average.
Okay, so we have like 4 more projects and then like 1 project a year at the current, unless there's.
If there are no infusions, yeah.
Right.
Any other questions, directors? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Okay, hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next up is item 3C on the agenda. This is to approve an after the fact extension to the Hula May multifamily bond issuance and rental housing revolving fund letter of intent for the Kuakini Heights Apartments located in Kailua Kona, Hawaii, PMK number 37-5-003-007. Is there a motion? Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there anyone in the public who would like to give testimony? Hearing none.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. Lei Keto with the Finance Branch, reporting on agenda item 3C to approve an after the fact extension for Kuakini Heights Apartments project. Some of the facts: awardee is Kuakini Heights Housing Partners LP and the developer is Ahe Group. The project is located in Kailua Kona on Hawaii Island and will consist of 100 affordable rental units for families on a leasehold site. There are 98 LIHTC units and 1 manager unit in this space with 1, 2, and 3 bedroom configurations. The development includes 11 two-story residential buildings and a management office with amenities such as a community room, laundry facilities, and high-speed internet. The project will target family households at 60% and below of the area median income and has an affordable commitment period of 66 years. The project site will be leased from Kuakini Heights Land LLC. Total development costs for the project are 76.2 million. The board originally approved the project on September 12th, 2024, which included HMMF bond financing, LIHTC awards, and $18.2 million in RHRF. The original HMMF bond issuance and RHRF closing date was September 12th, 2025. In July 2025, the board approved an increase to the HMMF bond amount to approximately 40 million. In August 2025, the awardee formally requested an extension to both the HMMF and RHRF deadlines. Since that time, staff wanted to obtain certainty regarding the project's disposition and anticipated closing timeline. The project is currently participating in weekly calls with HHFDC and the relevant parties. Permits are ready to issue, site control has been resecured, and the team is diligently working towards financial closing, which is anticipated in early April. With this, staff recommends the board approve the following: extend the deadline to issue HMMF bonds for Kuakini Heights Apartment Project to June 12th, 2026, and extend the RHRF LOI deadline to June 12th, 2026, and authorize the executive director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this board action. Thank you for your consideration, and Makani Maiva is here.
Thanks, all right, at this time, I'd like to open it up directors for questions for staff or for the developer. You have any? Director.
Chair. Here again, why the extension is necessary? Shorter terms.
Why they conflict necessary? Well, it had to be extended.
The board set a deadline when it
Yeah.
actually approved it, and you're now beyond that deadline.
Oh, yes, no, I understand that. But I think I missed when you explained.
Why isn't after the fact extension?
No, why extension is necessary.
What were the causes of the delays?
Yeah, the delays, I guess,
That was fine. All right.
Hi, Makani Maeva, the president of the Ahe Group. We were awarded this project in September of 2024. So we, by the terms of our original award, we should have closed by September of 25. We did not close during that period of time. Several things. One of the reasons we couldn't close is because we didn't have building permits. We now have building permits, right? We also, we didn't get bond counsel until October 25. So I don't think we couldn't have closed because we didn't have our attorneys appointed, right? That takes a long time. We also, I think we received documents on the rental housing revolving fund, and we provided comments maybe in June or July of 25, but we are just now getting those documents all tied up. So I think if it's a blame pie, I probably take a little slice and, you know, like everybody, you know, this is herding cats. A lot of things have to happen. I think the point of giving us a hard deadline is that everybody knows they're at risk, right? I'm a little working at risk and we're working together. We now know that we hopefully will be before this board next month for approval. We can't exactly bring you like, hey, give us an extension and give us an approval in the same moment, right? So we're asking for an extension to close, but we are right on the cusp of closing. We have executed construction contracts. We have all of, we had the 201H before we applied. We have all of our building permits. We have our Section 8 contract and the draft AHAP. It's just a checklist of a gajillion, a technical term, a gajillion things that have to come together to make this closing. So, yes, we technically are 4 or 5 months beyond that. Some of the things are federal, a close down, a shutdown of the federal government, which delayed some, statutory comment periods and approvals. Some of the things are, we're staff related. Some of the things are getting approvals from building permits on the Big Island. It's 1,000 things. But I think the point is it's actually very quick. We received an award and we are here like, what is it, 18 months, less than 18 months later and ready to close. And it's 100 units but it is a hard fought battle. It is.
I'd like to clarify, there's nothing in my question about blame at all.
No. It's in evaluating the process, we have to know what part we all play in it.
Our office staffs the Speed Task Force, which is a legislative initiative to try to identify where delays in housing are occurring in both permitting and.
Some comments.
Yeah, I'm sure. So what I was seeking from you was not.
How you can help.
Yes.
Okay.
And where those delays might be something that the Speed Task Force members could take in as useful information.
Yep.
And possibly, things that can be addressed. So please take my question in that spirit.
Yeah, no, I thank you. That's very good. State Historic Preservation Division. Yeah, we could use the concurrence letter from Shifty. Like actually today would be great. Right? So that on the state side, in the spirit of how we can all help, State Historic Preservation, getting that released to me, that concurrence letter, and would be fantastic. And then if the federal government could not shut down, so that I could get those final documents, it really is, but yeah, it would be helpful. And, everybody here is working so hard on all of these, and but you have to come up with the closing date, and you have to feel the force, and everybody's got to just plan to arrive for this, set of closing, for this time, place, time certain where we're going to close this deal. And we are so very nearly there. Hopefully, we see each other next month. You have the closing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Taking the question in the spirit I.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I know. We're all just.
Thank you.
Thank
Chair.
you. Yeah, question. About a year and a half ago, you got your bond from the board.
Yes.
And your total development cost is a little under 700,000 per unit.
Yes.
Any little hold your costs?
So when we came back in March or April of last year, we were coming back for a technical reason. At that point in time, the federal government rules said that we needed 50% of the project had to be funded with tax exempt bonds. And so we submitted a request because our construction costs were higher. So now our construction costs, I think we're at 69 million and now they're at around 76. When we received feedback that construction costs were higher, the county of Hawaii chimed in, offered additional resources. And so we didn't have a sources and uses problem, but we had a 50% test problem. So we came in with a request for additional bond proceeds to meet our 50% test. So we processed that in May and June, and we were before the board in July. So I think you gave me an approval, like just roughly July 6th or something. And then on July 9th, the one big beautiful bill happened. And that reduced the need for tax exempt bonds from 50% of the overall project cost to 30%. So we've been negotiating and everybody got to take another bite at the apple. Meanwhile, if I would have just slowed my roll, the federal government would have changed the rules and I would have, not even needed to come in for a request, right? But I did it already. And so we were done. And so our project costs did go up. The answer though is that Coastal has held their construction prices and we've reconfirmed those and we have a construction contract that we're ready to execute at this point in time. And those numbers are reflected here. That doesn't mean somebody somewhere, Helco or some utility, some after the fact comment, like what happened on our Lima, well, something's not gonna happen. We are holding tight and, to close, right? Yeah. Positive. Holding tight. Positive.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So if you get HHFDC funding, in the world of permitting, does that like give a special check mark where people spend a little bit more time than you or?
Everybody has got
Do a
a
special-
super fast plan, a rapid processing, priority. Da, 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 da. No, it's the answer. Doesn't matter. You go in, you try to have your plans as complete as possible. You ask nicely, you follow up, you request. Just, it doesn't practically speaking work because everything's a we need tons of affordable housing. It's all a priority. Everything's got a red slip on top. It used to be back in the olden days, you get this red piece of paper and that'd go on top of your plans. Now it's all electronic, so that's not the case. No, the problem is the permitting time, really across the board. Some counties are better than others, but no, it doesn't necessarily. But the inverse is true. If you have your building permits and you have the design and you have the 201H and you have all of that, then when I come and show up here at HHFDC, then I get points for readiness. So our efforts have been towards finding the site, designing, permitting, getting all of the third-party reports that we can get done so that when I arrive here, they say, oh, this is a real deal. This is actually going to close and it's going to close in a timely fashion and it can align well with what Mike Doyle was talking about in terms of financing coming in at just the right time for the closing of the transaction. What you don't want people to do, and what is the historical problem, is that people come in like, I got a great idea, but they don't have all of the details worked out but they want an award and then you're 7 years later, right? They're finally closing the deal. Well, that's not, that's no way to run a popsicle stand. So we have to really focus on readiness. And what we do as a developer is come in with more than an idea, land, permits, designs, all of the things would show you that we're serious. We made an investment. This is ideal. We've done market research and if you give us your resources, we will close and we will build. So.
Thank you very much. I'm taking a call for the question. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
We'll go on to the next agenda item. I wanted to ask, are we going to hit this?
No, we are not gonna get it.
Okay, so this is item 3D on the agenda and it was a request from the
applicant.
the applicant to withdraw this.
Yes.
Okay.
3D, that's all.
Before we go on to 3E, does anyone need? Yeah, we'll continue. All right. Item 3E, which is to approve a marketing plan and budget for the Holly Camarena mortgage program. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a second. Is there anyone in the public who would like to offer testimony? Anyone? Okay, if not, you presenting this? Oh, well, please come.
Yeah. Oh, come on up.
Sorry, I was watching from my office and realized that he was canceled. Thank you, Chair. Aloha and good morning, board members. My name is Danielle Guthrie. I'm a housing finance specialist in HHFDC's finance branch. I'm here to present item E for today's board agenda, which is a 4-action item. The purpose of this 4-action is to request board approval of a marketing plan and budget for the Polycom mortgage program. Before I get into the 4-action details, I would like to notate corrections to the 4-action and exhibit A. On page 1 of the 4-action, under section 3, in the very first line, the term realtor should be replaced with real estate community. Exhibit A of the 4-action is to be replaced in its entirety with a corrected exhibit A, for which copies have been provided in both track changes and clean form. Corrections to exhibit A are as follows. Eliminated lender incentive and reallocated budgeted funds to homebuyer incentives. Eliminated realtor incentive and reallocated funds to homebuyer incentives. Increased the number of homebuyer incentives from 25 to 35. Revised the use description of homebuyer incentive funds from appraisal and escrow fees to closing costs, prepaids, and reserves. Replaced the term realtor with real estate agent or real estate agent community as applicable throughout. There are no further corrections to the 4-action or exhibit A. We'll now go into the 4-action details. The Polycom Ina mortgage program is the new version of the Hula May program, which has been dormant for over 10 years. On November 21, 2025, Polycom Ina announced that loan reservations could begin starting on November 24, 2025. Despite being open for loan reservations for 2.5 months, a loan reservation has yet to be begun. Staff have been marketing the program through the following marketing channels: press releases, interviews with multiple media outlets, social media posts, program presentations targeted to lenders, real estate agents, brokers, title companies, and housing counseling agencies. A program-specific webpage on HHFDC's website has been set up. Program announcements are featured on HHFDC's website homepage, in addition to the program-specific webpage. Recent mortgage trend data shows that mortgage rates are projected to trend downward in 2026, with rates estimated to hover around 6%. For comparison, the Polycom Ina mortgage program rates are between 5.4 and 5.65% for government loans and between 5.7 and 5.95% for conventional loans. Since the program has been dormant for over 10 years, getting lender participation up to where it needs to be is taking us longer than expected. As of today, there are officially 11 lenders onboarded. We've received feedback from the real estate and lending communities involving 3 key areas of the program. There seems to be some misconception that the program rates are not significantly lower than the average market rate for conventional loans. The program has unique eligibility and use requirements, which can be viewed as burdensome or outweighing the benefits of the lower mortgage rate offered by the program. Our down payment assistance loan requires a 5% minimum borrower contribution, which is notably higher than the 3 to 3.5% standard for the primary loans offered by our program. This feedback underscores a need for HHFDC to enhance its education and outreach efforts to resolve widespread confusion and emphasize the program's cost-saving benefits. With market rates trending downward, there is concern about the timely deployment of program funds and gaining credibility within the community on the program's success. To ensure the program is successful, staff have prepared a marketing plan and budget detailed in corrected Exhibit A. Corrected Exhibit A describes the marketing plan and budget, where the marketing plan is broken into 4 major sections: goals and objectives, target audiences, marketing plan messaging by target audience group, and marketing tactics. Goals and objectives of the marketing plans are to increase overall participation in the program by strengthening partnerships with local lenders, enhancing the understanding of the program requirements with real estate agents, and helping qualified borrowers achieve the goal of affordable home ownership by providing them with competitive rate mortgage financing through our program. The target audiences of the marketing plan are home buyers, lenders, and real estate agents. Messaging to each target audience connects each group's goals with the program's mission of helping first-time home buyers purchase their first home. Marketing tactics describe starting with no-cost marketing channels and gradually employing paid marketing channels until participation in the program is sufficient. The budget of the marketing plan details expenses ranging from homebuyer incentives for the first 35 home buyers under the program, paid social media campaigns, featured television or news station interviews, newspaper advertisements, and a contingency line for any unforeseen marketing outlets not considered at the time of this for action. Staff recommends that the HHFDC Board of Directors approve the marketing plan and budget for the Holly Ina Mortgage Program as described in corrected Exhibit A, and authorize the Executive Director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this for action. Thank you.
Directors, questions? First one. Director Evans.
Yeah, I noticed that you're eliminating the vendor and.
Yeah.
Posing, well, just didn't drive any participation. Sorry.
We received feedback on February 6th after we turned in the initial for action that lenders and realtors should not be taking any incentives through our program, that it could pose a RESPA violation. And so the advice was to reallocate the funding toward homebuyer incentives.
Thank you. Chair.
You want to add anything to that, Dean?
Just that, the program, the rates that are being offered are competitive, but it does take some work to get the word out to the realtor community and to home buyers. If you go to a bank right now, for example, my credit union advertises 5.25% for 30-year mortgage. But in the fine print, that's with 20% down. Probably also requires a very high credit score. So our program is for a certain demographic where, okay, you don't have 20% down. You might have less than 5% that you can put down. And the credit score that, requires is also much more flexible. So it is a good product for certain buyers. And it's also working with lenders who have to change their processes to incorporate all mortgage types, which is not a conventional mortgage types. So it does require more work on mortgage brokers, for example, to incorporate this loan type into their practices. So it's a good product, but it's just going to take some time for this to take off again. It's been dormant for more than 10 years.
What is the overall budget for this program?
The initial issuance of bonds was $30 million. The total, I think, was $160 million of authorization program.
But we haven't issued any bonds yet.
We issued $30 million.
So we're paying interest on $30 million bonds. And we have 11 takers.
No, right now we don't have any takers.
Any takers
It's only been about a month.
launched.
Yeah.
Yes, Director Evans.
How do you set the mortgage rate? Yes.
The mortgage rate for the program is determined by the price of the bonds at the time of sale. So it's rather fixed once we set it, and it'll stay fixed until that funding is exhausted. With subsequent issuances, the rates will fluctuate based on the bond sale at that time.
So this first tranche of 30 million was at whatever the rate was, December. And then took a small tranche at this point, hoping that the market rate goes down for bonds, you would be able to reduce the
mortgage rate.
Yes.
$30 million is pretty small. For this type of program. And we did that intentionally knowing that we want to test the waters first and also knowing that rates might decline. So we didn't want to be stuck in a high with a rate that might not be competitive. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is more of a comment, but it's not clear to me that this is still like we're testing out the market viability of this, right? And so you might want to like at least consider some metrics to say like, at what point does this work or does it not work? And like, obviously we want to like support these programs and making sure, but we have to be realistic. And so I would encourage, happy to vote for this. But I would encourage like the development of other like, okay, what are the goalposts? How are we gonna set them up? And like, can we meet them by this time? Because the worry is that we're just chasing after this and we keep doing this program.
So the initial metrics are the number of loan reservations for which we don't have any. And in order for us to get loan reservations, we need to bring up the lender participation in the program, which is why we've been investing a significant amount of time in lender focused trainings, one-on-one and in large groups with lenders to educate them on the nuances of the product. As Dean mentioned, it is more competitive. We have a pretty low FICO score minimum. 660 gets you the competitive rate through our program. You don't have to put 20% down. And so getting this information well understood at the lender's side so that they can do their homebuyer outreach and education courses is taking us some time, but I believe that it is a worthwhile effort what we're doing right now, and that having the option for some paid marketing would help us get the message to home buyers that the program is out there. Home buyers would contact our lenders and it would be, their lenders are being approached from the state, they're being approached from home buyers. Momentum will pick up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think this is a great program. I just like, what's the timeline? Like 2 years or a year before we realize that like we have
It's
to
months.
Okay,
Okay, it's months.
All right, so next time we have a meeting, we should, or a couple meetings, we'll know if this is a viable program.
Thank you. All those in favor of motion to approve, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
None opposed, thank you. Dean, I understand you have to
leave
leave.
for another 45 minutes.
Oh, you can. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna take your report on over to Steve.
And Chair, my apologies. I also have to get going.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
for.
Aloha, everyone.
Okay, let's move on to item 3F. This is to approve the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation's transfer of the villages of Kapolei infrastructure maintenance, operation, and dedication to the city and county of Honolulu. And 2, a dwelling unit revolving fund budget of 60 million to effectuate the terms of the transfer. Is there a motion? A motion. Is there a second for that? Okay, is there anyone in the public who would like to give testimony for this agenda item? None, we will over to staff.
Hello and good morning, Chair Mackler, Vice Chair Riemann, Directors. I'm Randy Chu, Development Branch Chief at HHFDC. This morning, I respectfully submit to you E4 action for HHFDC's transfer of the villages of Kapolei infrastructure maintenance, operation, and dedication to the city and county of Honolulu, hereafter referred to as the city, and a dwelling unit revolving fund DERF budget of $60 million to effectuate the terms of the transfer. This 4 action is a follow-up to the 4 information agenda item presented on November 13, 2025. Following is a summary of the facts of the matter. 1988 Session Law of Hawaii resulted in the enactment of Act 15, which gave the Hawaii Finance and Development Corporation, HFDC, the predecessor agency to the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation, a greater degree of autonomy from county regulations. The law provided that HFDC flexibility in developing housing projects without going through the usual county level review and approval processes. Act 15 stipulated that the HFDC could adopt its own rule on building, planning, zoning, and land use for projects. These rules were given the force of law and superseded conflicting county rules and ordinances. The intent of Act 15 was to expedite the construction of new housing units to meet critical needs in the state of Hawaii. Act 15 had a 5-year duration and expired in 1993. Its sunset created ongoing administrative and legal challenges related to the conveyance of the infrastructure improvements to the city. In 1989, the state of Hawaii acquired land in Kapolei via a negotiated condemnation agreement with the estate of James Campbell at a cost of $17,225,200. The property was transferred to HFDC and targeted to become the first master plan housing community developed by the state of Hawaii, entitled the Villages of Kapolei. The state of Hawaii's vision for the Villages of Kapolei was to develop an 888-acre master plan community to address the state's affordable housing needs. In its capacity as the master developer of the 4,000+ unit residential community, HFDC constructed major infrastructure such as roadways, sidewalks, streetlights, and landscaping with the goal of eventual dedication to the city. A map of the master plan Villages of Kapolei is depicted in Exhibit A. The construction of the Villages of Kapolei backbone roads within the village's boundary commenced in the late 1980s. The annual operation costs for the Villages of Kapolei reflect ongoing HHFDC expenditures for infrastructure maintenance, design, construction management, legal support, and dedication transition activity. As of January 31, 2026, the Villages of Kapolei total control budget is $227,822,422.79, with approximately 75% expended to date. This figure represents cumulative spending for the project's inception under Act 15 to the current dedication transition. Based on expenditure pacing and active contract obligations, HHFDC's FY26 annual operation cost is estimated between $7 million and $8.5 million, consistent with the April 13, 2023 for-action budget projection. These costs include consultant services, engineering, design, construction of roadway and drainage improvements and repairs, legal title support for dedication, and ongoing landscape and infrastructure maintenance. Discussion. In 2022, HHFDC and the city executed a memorandum of agreement, MOA, which established maintenance and rehabilitation responsibilities for the Villages of Kapolei roadways and drainage systems prior to dedication. Under the MOA, the city agreed to accept maintenance responsibilities for the roadway and drainage infrastructure once HHFDC improves the infrastructure to a standard acceptable to the city. A new 2026 MOA between HHFDC and the city is being negotiated to replace the 2022 MOA. The 2026 MOA establishes comprehensive terms for the transfer of maintenance, operation, and dedication of the Villages of Kapolei infrastructure to the city. The MOA provides for the city's acceptance of ownership, maintenance, and operational responsibilities of their infrastructure in a as-is condition, and make improvements to the infrastructure as the city deems necessary. The city has requested HHFDC provide a financial contribution of $60 million payable over 10 years to cover the cost for the city to make the improvements and repairs to the infrastructure. It is estimated that HHFDC's operational costs and repairs required under the 2022 MOA would generally be equivalent to the contemplated $60 million financial contribution. Execution of the 2025 2026 MOA will enable full transition of the infrastructure responsibilities consistent with HHFDC's Declarant Sunset Plan by 2030. Recommendation. Staff respectfully recommends that the HHFDC Board of Directors approve the following. One, HHFDC's transfer of the Villages of Kapolei infrastructure, maintenance, operation, and dedication to the City and County of Honolulu substantially as described in this for action, including but not limited to the execution of the 2026 MOA. Two, a DERF budget of $60 million to effectuate the terms of the transfer and to be paid to the city over 10 years, a 10-year period pursuant to the 2026 MOA. Three, authorize the executive director to take all actions necessary to effectuate the purpose of this for action. Subject to the following. Approval as to form of any applicable documents by the Department of the Attorney General and execution by the executive director. Availability of DERF funds and authorization and approval by the governor for the release of funds. Staff is available to answer any questions you may have regarding this for action.
Thanks, Randy. Directors, questions? Yeah. Director Evans.
So HHFDC won't see any cost savings from this transfer for 10 years. Accepting that the 60 million even when getting increments over 10 years is basically equal to the operational costs that HHFDC would have incurred if they did not transfer. Is that correct?
That is correct. And in addition to that, if it was not transferred over, we would have had to spend that money for the improvements, and we would continue to have ownership of them in the future, which we are really trying to, 35 years in the making, to transfer it over to the city.
And these are the common areas.
Yes, the roads, all the road lots, common areas there.
Are the villages of Kapolei, are the villages of Kapolei substantially built out except for the north?
Yes, the northwest corner is the last sizable lot that we have that needs to be developed, and that would complete the full development of the villages of Kapolei.
Does that remain with HHFDC if the transfer goes through?
Yes, the northwest corner, a portion of it will be leased to the developer, and there is a portion, a phase of that development which is for sale.
And when that is complete, is that included in the 2026 MOA of transfer so that there isn't a remaining obligation on the part of HHFDC for the common area and infrastructure for the northwest corner?
Well, the northwest corner is pretty much self-contained, so the developer is on the hook for, maintaining any common areas there.
So those would be regarded as on-site.
Yeah.
And never would be transferred to the city.
No. There would be on-site roads specific for that development.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Correction, I think the latest MO to the city is for a period of 6 years, 10 years.
So it is 10 years, but it isn't 6 million for 10 years. It's 10 million for the first 2 years, then goes down.
It still is 10 years.
It's over 10 years though.
With a declining
Yeah.
income.
Well, the goal is we're gonna spend the money one way or the other, but the goal is to transfer ownership and future responsibility for the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
This is something we've been working towards for the last 30 years to transfer the roads to the city. Ideally, it would have occurred with no cost, but realistically, we have no leverage in asking the city to take these roads. So this is the best I think that we can do. In the long term, there will be substantial savings because we are expending $6 to $10 million per year to maintain the infrastructure.
I think the other component to this is, and it's actually reflected in our strategic plan for HHFDC, and that's to enhance our efficiency by extricating ourselves from the responsibilities for the villages, utilizing our staff capacity, and focusing that capacity in other areas.
But one comment,
Yes.
a question. Has there ever been an estimate of how much property tax the city has collected on the villages of Kapolei since its inception?
Well, that's a very good question. Since its inception in the late 1980s, the city and county has been collecting property taxes on all the residential units that have been in place. And my understanding that the property taxes is one of the major purposes of such is to maintain infrastructure that the city owns, but if they don't own it, they don't maintain it, so we're trying to change that.
Yeah, which brings us to taking a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 5. Carry the vote. It's approved. Thank you. Okay, going to item 3G on the agenda. This is discussion and action on companion bills related to housing, Senate Bill 2338 and House Bill 1714, proposing to revise personnel and compensation policy. This is a discussion item.
Discussion and action.
And action, excuse me, so. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and
Second.
there is a second, okay, and before I go on, is there anyone in the public would like to offer testimony? If not, okay, I'll do the.
Yes, Chair. For the Senate Bill 2338 and its companions, and House Bill 1714 were introduced, and the intent in speaking to the legislator who introduced the bill was to increase HHFDC's capacity so that we could attract, the best people to the agency. Among other things, increases the compensation of the executive director. Also retitles the position of executive assistant to deputy executive director to more clearly define what the expectations of that role are. And it also provides us with autonomy in personnel matters. This bill has been heard on the House and Senate side. It has advanced all of their initial committees. I think it'll be better though for the board to take a position on this bill. It seems a little, I don't feel comfortable advocating for myself for a higher salary. For the personnel matters, I will note that is something that I had requested to be added to the bill. Right now we're attached to DBED. And I know they have their own reasons for their processes, but there are times when it does slow us down and can be problematic. I don't know if that's possible though. We had a meeting with Department of Human Resources earlier this week, and so maybe that may not be something that can actually happen, but I think we can work with DBED on the human resources questions that we have.
I'd like to urge the members to support this measure, especially on the personnel process. I think there are quasi-public corporations in the state that handle their own, have autonomy on personnel proceedings. Sure that Hawaii Hospital Systems Corporation does that, others. So I don't, I understand that DHER wants to assure assurance that the merit system will be observed, but HHFDC has, professional personnel, human resource staff already. They are excellent, and I think there is a strong argument for giving HHFDC autonomy. Out of all the attached agencies to DBED, that would be my personal observation. So that's, and I do think it's important for the agency of use importance to the state to have the ability to retain staff that can handle this kind of, it isn't your normal state employee skill sets. Thank you, Chairman.
Welcome. Anyone else? Comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dean. And that brings us to item 3H, which is information on the 2025 State of Hawaii Employee Housing Report.
Good morning, Chair Mackler, Vice Chair Lyman, and members of the board. I'm Michael Yee, I'm the Chief Planner. Last year, the legislature passed a bill and it became an act for us to create a State of Hawaii Employee Housing Program. Also including county employees too. We contracted with Ward Research to administer a survey last year. And so we're here to present the findings. And I think one thing I would pay attention to would be, there are a lot of housing surveys that are out there. And so there will be some distinct things that are, part of the State of Hawaii employees that you'll want to hear that will help inform what kind of program in the future. This is Jeff May from Ward Research, and I'll let him take it away from here.
Good morning, members of the board. Again, I'm Jeff May with Word Research. As Michael said, we conducted a survey last year in the fall of state employees, and the purpose of the survey was really to understand the current situation of housing among current employees, but also in accordance with Act 166, to learn a little bit more about interest in an employee housing program, particularly if it were built at or near a skyline station. So this presentation basically highlights some of the key findings from that, from what we learned in that survey. Just as a primer, again, this was filtered through Act 166. Word Research, working with HHFDC, Gordon in particular, contacted all state employees who had a valid email address, which is approximately 33,000 employees. We were able to get responses from about 5,600 state employees, so it was a robust sample. Obviously, we would love to have more. 100% response rate would be ideal, but that's just not realistic. But the data provides a really interesting glimpse at the current housing situation of state employees, and also their interest in a potential employee housing program moving forward. Just in terms of methodology, key characteristics, again, we were able to speak to about 5,600 employees. They were representation, covered all islands, covered all executive branch departments, and then all other state agencies and then state entities, excluding DOE. In 2023, they participated in their own housing study, so we did not contact them for this particular research. But again, in terms of representation, we did a good job of basically getting good representation from all levels of employees, and then from all agencies and other demographic characteristics. Okay, so starting with some of the key findings, one of the things that we found was that amongst state employees and those surveyed, we have more renters, or there are more renters than homeowners. And there's a significant, not a significant, but there is a gap there. About 47% indicated they rented, only 40% indicated they were homeowners. When we looked at some of the demographic breakdowns or characteristics of those who were more likely to be homeowners, they tend to live on neighbor islands where housing costs are a little bit lower. They tend to be older, more established employees. They've worked for the state for quite a while. Renters, on the flip side of that, are more likely to be those who live on Oahu where costs are a little bit higher. They tend to be younger, less established, less tenured employees. And then we have a third group who are those who we deem occupiers. Those are employees or family members who live with others. They don't necessarily pay for rent. They're staying with, family, friends. Some may not pay anything at all. Others may pay, a limited or a nominal fee, maybe pay for, utilities or something like that. That's a smaller portion, but it is a distinct portion of the state employee workforce. Okay, so when we looked at all of the employees who responded to the survey, a little over half live in single-family homes, whereas the other half are, basically living in multifamily complexes like apartments, duplexes, or condos. 57%, I think this is an interesting stat, 57% live in households where 2 or more generations. So we understand that that's typical in Hawaii, but among state workers, that is a pretty significant number. And then 23% live in a household with someone who has a potential disability. Now that makes sense if we look at that 57% and we understand that, okay, we're talking about multi-generational households, so you will have some older members. But again, it's an important stat nonetheless. Down there at the bottom, we also mentioned that about 59% of employees have commutes that are under 30 minutes. But then, almost 10% have at least an hour drive. So, there is some variation there. For DOE employees, that number, when we looked at their data, about 74% of those employees had commutes under less than 30 minutes. So the general state workforce compared to DOE employees, they're traveling a bit more, or at least they're spending more time commuting. Okay, another one of the interesting findings and important findings from this research is that state employees are considerably more cost burden than the general public. We found that amongst renters, 84% indicate that they pay more than 30% of their household income towards housing costs. And amongst homeowners, that's about 74%. Statewide, according to the Hawaii Housing Planning Study, that was 46%. So obviously it's considerably higher and our state employees are more burdened.
Could you control for retirees?
So we looked at we were able to cut the data. We looked at those who have just a full-time employee within the household. So it's not exactly apples to apples, but if you look at those numbers amongst homeowners, it's about 37%, and amongst renters, it's about 60%. Sorry, that's of the general public. So we didn't.
Yeah. That the general public's gonna be skewed by retirees. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so when we only look at amongst the general public, those who have a full-time employee in the household, that number is 37% of homeowners who are cost burdened. So again, our state employees are just.
Did you control for age?
I can take a look at that. We didn't, but good. Okay. Again, part of this, the study was to take a look at, who's going to be moving or who's indicating that they are moving. We see about 35% say that they plan to move in the next few years. That's just general moving. It's not moving off island. It's just, hey, my lease is up, or, whatever's going on, I'm going to be moving. And that number is higher amongst renters. we asked those who plan to move but don't plan to buy, what is preventing them from doing so? And 95%, the vast majority are saying housing is too expensive. Just over 2/3 say that they also can't afford a down payment. I think that number may actually underestimate what's going on. That was, in terms of the survey, we asked them, what are the different reasons, and they say that. But we also have a follow-up question amongst those who are intend to move and how much they have saved for a down payment. Only 15% have 200,000 or more saved for a down payment. So if we assume median $1 million home, they don't have the 20% down. We also asked them how much could you afford to pay in the future, and they're about 2,500 is kind of the sweet spot in terms of what they can afford to pay. That's any sort of, that's rent or home ownership. So I think there's a lack of understanding about what it really takes to purchase a home.
And did you, this is just state employees, right?
Yeah.
You didn't ask us about their whole entire household income.
We did include that. So yeah.
So like this is controlled for all household income.
Yep. Okay, as I said earlier, part of this research, part of the impetus of this research was to understand support for a state employee housing program. What we found was that amongst all of those who say that they're gonna probably move at some point, 78% are interested in a state employee housing program or a state employee housing unit. Those tend to be, if you look on the right side of the screen, those the characteristics of those who support this program are going to be they're younger, they've got both the smaller households and those larger households. They're less tenured and they have less household income, and they're disproportionately Native Hawaiian employees. Filtering that, we go and we ask, okay, amongst those who are planning to move in the next 2 years and you live on Oahu, or residents from other islands who plan to move to Oahu, how interested would you be in an employee housing unit at a Skyline station? And again, we see about 74%. So there is support amongst the data and amongst the respondents for this type of program. And when we look at those who are significantly more likely to support the Skyline option, it's going to be men, Filipino workers, and those who have less tenure with the state. Okay, we asked those who are interested in a Skyline location. We broke the segment Skyline into 5 segments, and we asked them, okay, so where would you prefer to live on each of these segments? Most respondents who are interested in this program would want to live in the Kaka'ako to Ala Moana area. There's, again, that would be ideal, but I don't know if it's necessarily realistic given costs, but I'll let y'all make that decision. There's also interest in the East Kapolei Pearl Ridge and Aloha Stadium to Lagoon Drive. But the Kaka'ako area was clearly the most important area. Okay, in terms of what housing type and housing preferences of amenities, most people would prefer to live in a townhome as opposed to a condo or apartment. They would prefer 2 bedrooms and either 1 to 1.5 bathrooms. In terms of those essential amenities, in-unit kitchens, on-site laundry, private bathrooms, parking, and safety and security features. So those were the leading amenities. In terms of what they can afford, so we've got a bell curve here, and it peaks at between $1,400 and $1,700. So that's the kind of the sweet spot for employees in terms of what they think would be reasonable, a reasonable price point for these units. Now, obviously there's a little bit more on the left, a little bit more on the right, so there is some variation there that could go either way. But in terms of sort of like the peak, we're looking at $1,400 to $1,700. They would prefer longer term leases, so looking at 12-month leases. And when we asked how long you would intend to live in a unit like this, there's interest in living there for 5 or more years. Okay, last couple of things. A part of the survey asked, and as part of the part of what we did with the survey research was try to get a better understanding of how housing attitudes impact the perception of recruitment and retention. And I think some of this is kind of intuitive, but what we found was that a lot of residents, most employees find that the high housing costs in Hawaii are impacting the state's ability to both recruit and retain employees. In fact, a lot of employees say that they have considered leaving their position because of the high housing costs. But they do agree that having some sort of program through the state that would provide lower rental units would be definitely advantageous in terms of helping with recruitment and retention. Okay, just two sort of like conclusions based on this research. First, we presented the highlights here, but there's a wealth of data in these in the survey research in terms of preferences, understanding attitudes, understanding the current situation. Like we look at like what the current number of bedrooms and bathrooms amongst current employees is. So we have that information. So a lot of this data can be used not only for understanding the current context, but also moving forward with the program, looking at if you wanted to develop it, what are the ideal housing types, what are the amenities that would be preferred, and that sort of thing. The other thing, and this is more of Michael's area, but it looks like other programs to help support state workers with housing costs would definitely be supported, and based off the cost burden data would definitely be needed. And that's it.
Thank you both. I'll open it up for questions.
Chair,
Director.
when you looked at your response rate of 5,000 some, did you try to weight that to what you might know about the 32,000?
We didn't, because we didn't have a great understanding of the population. And so this is just the raw data by itself.
I have a comment.
Feel free.
I think this supports the low income items mortgage program initiative because so few state employees that responded could meet the 20% down payment for home ownership, and home ownership tend to stabilize the workforce even more than renting. Just a comment.
Anyone else? Did you, for that 200,000, did you ask if they already owned a home?
Yeah, so that was amongst
The people who don't?
no. So that was amongst those who were intending to move. So that included both current, would include current homeowners and then more likely renters, but it included a mix of people who said, oh, I intend to move in the future. And then this is what I could potentially afford both as a down payment and separately as the monthly costs.
So that included their home.
I would assume so. We didn't specifically break that out, but realistically, that's probably a safe assumption. The flip side of that is that about half could only afford less than 50. So that's kind of where I think it would include some homeowners, but most homeowners are probably going to be a little bit more reluctant to move. So we're probably looking at people who are generally renters, and then maybe a small fringe of homeowners who maybe, I don't know. I don't know if we were talking about people with less equity or not, but it would be a small sliver of homeowners in that group.
Because what our housing ladder is, we want people to buy a condo and then they can buy a house. But I was just interested to know that issue. Like one of my concerns with this thing is you're not taking into the life cycle, aspect of everything, right? So you did this. My guess is if you did this in like San Francisco, New York, a lot of places would be the same, right? Which is like young people pay 50% of the rent to live in the city, which is totally and then as you do your household formation, you build up, you move out, you decide to have combined incomes. So, as we think about these plans, what we really want to do is we want to support our population as they go through their entire life.
And a lot of the things that we're, my concern with doing these things is like, we don't want to lock people into like living like a 30-year-old or 40-year-old. Or like a 30-year-old single person. Or those types of things. And so, especially with these types of information where we're really just taking survey data, which is like different from revealed preferences, right? Which is like how many people are actually leaving the state employment, which we could figure out if what we heard. Those are just some of the things.
And to your point, so when we looked at the map, the preference amongst those who wanted to live in downtown in Kaka'ako, that's gonna be your younger, more affluent, more educated, populace who that's their thing, right? Whereas those who have the larger households, who have less income, maybe less education, their preferences were more towards, maybe Eva, maybe Kapolei, that side where I can get more household, more bang for my buck as opposed, and gets to that different lifestyle, those lifestyle differences.
A comment to member Coles. I have seen a policy shift away from allowing affordable home developers to load up on studios in order to be able to say we're building so many, especially in inclusionary zoning. Sometimes in 201H2 to move the 51%. And this agency has worked to discourage that because it does mean that you have constant churn as those younger workers who are willing to live in a studio form households and can no longer, tolerate the micro apartments. So I think, that awareness of that through the life cycle, providing product that meets those changing needs, but also doesn't set us up with a permanent inventory of a lot of studios is something that I certainly support. And I think the agency has worked hard to see that too. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just note that, this is just the first step in implementing Act 166, which, is again a mandate to develop a government employee housing program. So certainly we have data about preferences and potential income levels and rents which the project can support. The next step is identifying the proper site and building typology, rent, financing structure. And that's work that will be worked doing now.
And the bill was specific around one pilot project at a TOD area. So that'll be forthcoming at some point.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. It's time, we'll just go on. Dean, do you have a report for the board?
Let's just very quickly, the past month, I think no time and then every time that how we come on this program, we've been presenting it to realtors, different groups, vendors. This morning I have a Living 808 segment which we're filming to get the word out. So it's a good program. It's a matter of getting the word out to home buyers really, so that they can go to lenders and ask, hey, I heard about this great mortgage program. Can you offer it to me? So we're working on that. Also for legislation, just wanted to really commend Michael Yee and Dean Watasi for RC-Tran for stepping up. We have a new team doing our legislation this year. And, it's a lot of work for them to prepare testimony and spread notice, and they've been doing a great job. We're tracking 130 something bills, and we're the lead agency for almost 40 bills. So it's a lot of work on their part to track all these measures and prepare testimony many times in just a day's notice. But for our bills, there are 5 that we were pushing. One is the down payment assistance amendment to statute, which right now requires home buyers to put down 5% of their own funds. Participate in our down payment program. That's a barrier now for many home buyers, you know, especially when. The average mortgage amount might be about $500,000. You have $25,000 of your own funds to put towards down payment. And cover closing costs, might be another $5,000. It's a lot, you know, for buyers. So reducing that amount would be helpful, and that's what we're proposing. We have the DERF equity program, which is in a pilot right now for proposing to make that permanent, which was moving along to make the program permanent. There is the mixed income sub account, which was created last year. We're asking for more of a technical fix to allow us to transfer funds between rental house revolving fund, the new mixed income sub account. So that's also moving this year. There's the rent to own bill, which, you know, we're looking at creating our own rent to own projects. We're going to be starting the rent to own program with the 20 units being purchased at the Block 821 Mono project later this year. And we're just seeking some flexibility in our ability to administer that program, where the term wouldn't be fixed at 5 years, but it will give us the discretion to fix the term depending on the project. And the last bill is, I call the workforce housing bill, one that does away with the 10-year buyback and the short appreciation restrictions. And instead replaces them with the restriction whereby the unit really can be sold at any time by the buyer, but it'd be at a indexed rate. So the rate that we're looking at is the overall rate of appreciation of multifamily units on Oahu, which is about 4.5% per year. So a home buyer could purchase an affordable unit. They could sell at any time at basically say 4.5% compounded rate of return per year. So the buyer will get equity over time, the same rate of equity that an investor does. But the unit also stays comparatively affordable compared to market units. So that's moving forward also.
Any questions for Dean? Thank you for the report, Dean. That brings us to adjournment. Is there a motion, Director? I heard a motion. Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.